Hey folks, you're now listening to an exclusive bonus episode of the Whitfield Report, exclusive to audio podcast listeners. Enjoy the show. What's up, Savages? It's me, Savage Sam, here for the Whitfield Report Wednesday bonus episode. Yeah, that's right. I finally decided to do the bonus episode that I've been talking about for months and months now. How about that? But again, folks, welcome to the show. This is a bonus episode. It's Wednesday, August 28th, 2019. I usually don't do the date for the show, but hey, I'm feeling good. I've got a new mic set up, by the way, in case any of you guys are wondering why I sound a bit different maybe. I decided to try a new mic out. The Yeti microphone is good, but I wanted to try something new out. One of the flaws of the Yeti is that it doesn't reject background noise out very well, so I decided to go with the Samson Q2U microphone, which is plugged into my MacBook, and I'm just using my audio recording program here for when I record audio podcasts off the Mac directly, which is rare these days. Most of the time when I use the Mac for podcast recording, it's actually live streaming, and then I'll do audio podcasts from my iPad. And this mic will actually be able to be used with the iPad with one of those USB adapters for the iPad. I'll be picking one of those up tomorrow so I can do the regular Thursday podcast. But I just figured I would do this bonus episode and just try out on a standard, audio recording program just to see how it goes. And so far, everything seems to be looking pretty well as far as the levels go. And, what the hell? I promised I would do this bonus episode for you guys anyway. I haven't had the chance to do it over the past couple days, so I decided I would do it now. I was going to do it Sunday, and then obviously I released not one but two episodes of the Whitfield Report Saturday edition on Sunday, so I couldn't do three. And then I was busy on Monday and Tuesday, so you're getting the bonus show on Wednesday. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, and I know I'm going to. So the title of this episode is going to be, this bonus podcast is going to primarily be about movies, some movie news, and some pop culture stuff. And as you guys can tell from the title, this episode is titled Keanu, or 2021 is going to be the year of Keanu Reeves. And, I think it's true. Let's just dive in here to some of the news. Keanu Reeves has really been, kicking ass and taking names in, movies as of the last few years. He's always been a superstardom. He's always been a superstar. Arguably, I mean, his best known role is probably Neo, but even before that, we had Bill and Ted. We had Bill and Ted 2. Then we had The Matrix. And of course, now he's also John Wick, the Baba Yaga, which John Wick is probably one of my favorite action movie series, excluding James Bond, of course, which we have Bond 25 news as well. So, a lot to cover there. But, yeah, 2021 is going to be a big year for movies. And it's going to be a big year for Keanu Reeves specifically. We have John Wick Chapter 4 coming out. We have Bill and Ted 3 coming out. Although maybe that's coming out in 2020. I'm not sure, but I know that both John Wick 4 and The Matrix 4 are both coming out in 2021. So that's huge news there. And, then he also may be getting ready to go into, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. Those are just rumors at this point, but either way, really, just a big year for Keanu. I mean, it was a big year for Keanu Reeves this year with John Wick 4, and then he did Cyberpunk 2037 or whatever that game is called. So, yeah, he's just killing. He was in a few Netflix movies too, so, Keanu's in everything, right? He was big in the 90s and early 2000s with the Matrix trilogy. And then he kind of had a dry spell there for a few years where he wasn't really in anything. And, now he's made a comeback within the last 5 years. John Wick was hugely successful in and of itself. They did John Wick 2, which did pretty good as well. Some people argue it's better than the original. But I think, the first one was just a masterpiece in and of itself. John Wick Chapter 3, I actually liked better than 2. I know that there are lots of people who disagree with me on that, but I like the idea that number 3 really actually focused on Wick's backstory and origins, in a sense. Which is funny because a lot of, people out there said that number 3 was mostly, action and it didn't really have a story. And I mean, let's be honest, when we're talking about the John Wick films, okay, the entire movie is basically, an action sequence. So let's not kid ourselves. But I did like number 3, kind of how they've woven, the story together of, the 3 movies, and they've really kept, it one continuous story, Parts 1 and 2 take place only a few days from each other, and then, 3 basically picks up right where 2 left off and goes from there. So I really enjoyed that, and, what else can I say? I think Chapter 4 is going to be really, really interesting because when they announced that there was going to be a John Wick 3, everyone, including myself, kind of assumed that, it would be like a 3-hour-long spectacle, and they would kind of wrap up John Wick's story in, 3 and make a nice, even trilogy. But I'm pleasantly surprised that they're going to make a, 4th John Wick too. So I think that will be good, and I'm excited to see who they bring back and who they introduce, and obviously that's where Keanu and Lawrence Fishburne are working together now. They announced The Matrix 4, kind of shifting gears now. Matrix 4 got announced this past weekend, and I was shocked. I think everyone kind of was at the timing, although I have to give it to my friend Tyro, who's been a guest on the podcast before. He and I go back to middle school. We've been friends for, years now, and ever since we've been friends, he has always maintained, bro, they're gonna make a Matrix 4, bro, they're gonna make a Matrix 4. Like, that's what he has said to me for years, that a Matrix 4 is going to be coming out. And I've often said, well, why? The Matrix trilogy is perfect as far as like action movie trilogies go. Why add a fourth one? It doesn't, there doesn't need to be a fourth one. The story was told in 3 acts across 3 movies, and it worked well. And he's like, yeah, but I just know that they're gonna make a fourth one, and it's probably going to be really good. So, and we've had that conversation off and on for, about 15 years now. 12 years or so. And then, Matrix 4 gets announced, and he's like, see, I told you. He actually, when I called, he hadn't heard the news, so I broke it to him, and he's like, I told you, bro. What have I been telling you for years? So, that was funny, just kind of the banter he and I had with each other about that. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I'm at this point with The Matrix 4, I'm more curious than anything. People are already saying that this is going to be a great movie, and I feel like there is a bit of like a big hype train going on, and this does worry me a little bit, because another franchise which we'll get to in a bit here is Star Wars, and we'll get to that in a sec. But I fear that like the Matrix enthusiasm might be a bit like the enthusiasm for the new Star Wars movies were back in 2015, right? But let's come back to that in a sec. What I find interesting about The Matrix 4 is, Keanu Reeves is returning as Neo, which I'm glad about. Maybe they'll explain how he survived, 3, because it seemed pretty clear that he made, he sacrificed himself and gave his life. He was the Christ figure. So maybe number 4 is about like his resurrection. Also, Carrie-Anne Moss has been cast to return, so she's returning as Trinity. So I don't know if she'll have like a major role in the movie. I don't know if Keanu will have like a major role. The one interesting thing is that Lawrence Fishburne has not been, his name has not appeared, as being recast, and neither has Hugo Weaving for Agent Smith, although, we don't know for sure if that's going to happen yet. They could bring back Lawrence Fishburne, and they could bring back, Hugo Weaving as Agent Smith. There's still a lot of mystery surrounding Matrix 4. We don't really know a lot yet, but suffice it to say that movie is coming out, and let me put it this way. I'm happy that they're coming out with a fourth Matrix as opposed to rebooting the Matrix, series entirely. Pardon the pun. But that was one thing that, the studios were talking a few years ago, and pretty much anyone who has, ever watched The Matrix, or in my case, grew up with The Matrix, everyone pretty much said, no, we do not need another, reboot series. We would rather have like a fourth movie, but we do not want a reboot, which, thank God the studio actually listened to us for once. So, Matrix 4 is coming out, very, very exciting. John Wick, Chapter 4, Bill and Ted 3, which, is going to be huge as well. So yeah, 2021 is going to be a big year for Keanu. 2021, it is also going to be the year that we get a new James Bond film, Bond 25, I believe. No Time to Die, the title was just released, and James Bond is probably my all-time favorite action franchise, and just cinematic franchise in general. And Daniel Craig, aside from Sean Connery, is my favorite Bond, although, I'm kind of in a weird position because I grew up in the era where, Pierce Brosnan was, Bond, but then also, Craig came along and filled the role in 2006 with Casino Royale, and I remember being like a kid in middle school at the time, in junior high, and, thinking, well, James Bond isn't blonde. He's not going to be able, this General Craig guy, he's going to be another Timothy Dalton. He's just not really going to work out. And lo and behold, Daniel Craig has turned out to be arguably one of the best Bonds ever, next to, Sir Sean Connery himself. I think Sean Connery, when it comes to the role of Bond, is kind of in a league of his own, so to speak. So, that's... I'm excited for Bond 25. Reportedly, it's going to be, Craig's last outing as 007. So I'm curious about that, if that's, going to be true. We heard that, Spectre was going to be Craig's last Bond film as well. So, who knows? I do want to address, though, not to get political, because this is mainly, a movie podcast, a bonus podcast, but there was all this, hand-wringing over Lashana Lynch, being cast as like a female 007, and, people were saying that she was cast as next Bond, and there was this whole, big brouhaha made on the internet about it, and a lot of people fell for it, and it was funny because it sparked like a whole, thing of, well, yes, it's time for, female James Bond. That's what you got from the radical, feminist left, and then you got, the right wingers being like, James Bond is a man, and, there's no way in hell that that a woman is going to be James Bond, and then, the next thing you know, it's going to be a tranny, as James Bond. So, we heard basically all the claptrap from both sides, and what's hilarious to me is, whenever a James Bond movie is in the works, the tabloids always love to make up rumors like this, right? There's always some controversial rumor with the tabloids, surrounding a James Bond movie. A few years ago, Idris Elba was reportedly going to replace Craig as James Bond, and there was a whole brouhaha about that. Now, I didn't want Idris Elba to replace Daniel Craig for two reasons. One, at the time when that whole thing was going on, I didn't feel that Craig was done being Bond yet. And also, for me, it's hard to picture Idris Elba as James Bond because Idris Elba plays DCI John Luther, who is another, one of my favorite characters in television. And Idris Elba will always be John Luther, so it's really hard for me to picture him in any other role but Luther. So, in my world, he can't be both John Luther and, James Bond. But, then again, Keanu Reeves is both John Wick and Neo. So, who knows? It would be an interesting choice if he were, but I don't think he's going to do it. He's said that he's not really interested. But we'll see. We will certainly see indeed. No Time to Die. Some people like the title, some people don't. And Rami Malek as the villain. I like Rami Malek as an actor as far as, Mr. Robot, and then he did a phenomenal job playing Freddie Mercury in the Bohemian Rhapsody biopic. As far as his villain chops go, I don't know. I think that's kind of relatively undiscovered territory for him. What I will say is it's really hard to be... It is really hard to be the villain from Skyfall. And I'm blanking on the actor's name right now, so it'll and it's going to bug me. So I'm going to pull up my phone and actually look this up. And I can't believe I'm having to do that because it's a pretty common name, but nevertheless I'm blanking, so hang on a sec. Javier Bardem. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Yeah, it's hard to top Javier Bardem as the villain from Skyfall. He did such a phenomenal job in that role. He basically played his character from No Country for Old Men and brought it into the Bond universe for Skyfall. So, arguably, his character was one of the best Bond villains ever, so it's pretty hard to top. But I know Rami Malek also has a pretty good repertoire of acting skills. So who knows? He could be a great Bond villain. So I'm excited about that. Now, Star Wars. Let's talk Star Wars and then let's talk about Marvel and get all the Mouse House stuff out of the way. So when it comes to Star Wars, obviously I'm a huge fan of the original trilogy, and I'm a Star Wars fanboy. I grew up, with the prequel trilogy, and I know that people love to shit on the prequels as being like horrendous, but I don't know. I grew up with them, and yeah, granted they're not as good as the originals, but they're not horrible either. They're not the monstrosities that people make them out to be. When the new trilogy was announced, I was excited like everyone else. I will say that I think episode 7 held up pretty well, actually, and I was pleasantly surprised. Episode 8 was kind of a, like when I saw, I didn't hate it like everyone else appeared to, but it's clearly obvious that they had some issues. And, now it's, I did view it a second time and I'm like, yeah, this movie is pretty bad. So episode 8 was a real doozy, I think we can all agree. In terms of episode 9, I want to say I'm excited, but at this point with Disney doing what they've done, I mean, they put the Star Wars, story movies on hold, because Solo kind of underperformed, and Solo I actually liked. They did a pretty good job with that. Rogue One was good, although I don't remember anyone asking for Rogue One. But, suffice it to say, Star Wars fans are, kind of up in arms right now. And all I can say is Disney really has a lot of mistakes that they have to fix in number 9, and they really have to redeem themselves. I have seen the trailer for episode 9, and let me just say that I wouldn't say I'm excited, and I wouldn't say I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, and I wouldn't say like I'm super excited. I am interested though. I'm interested to see if they can redeem themselves at this point, or if the Mouse House has really gotten too big for their britches. I definitely think though that like having a Star Wars film every year, like they've tried doing with the Marvel series, hasn't worked out, and I'm actually glad that it hasn't worked out, because Star Wars, for me growing up, and I don't know, this might be just a nostalgia thing, but in my mind, Star Wars is like a very special thing. So when it came out every few years as a kid, right? Starting off with the Phantom Menace in 2000, and then Attack of the Clones in 2002, and then Revenge of the Sith. I almost said Revenge of the Sith, which is friend of the show. But with the prequel movies, we had to wait a few years in between, right, those movies, right? So when the prequels came out, like or not, it was a big deal. right, there was anticipation because there was only a Star Wars movie every 3 years, and so it was a big deal. Once Disney acquired it and tried to change it, and putting out movies every year, it started to kind of lose its appeal a bit. So I'm glad that they paused making the movies for a bit, and so, like I said, I'm interested more or less to see what they do with Episode 9. Hopefully they can pull off, and I hope so for their sake and for the fans' sake, because if they can't, Disney is going to have a massive problem on their hand. Now, as far as Spider-Man leaving the MCU, this is going to be a big problem for them with the Marvel franchise, right? Because they were making movies non-stop for 10 years. I know that they were going to take a break this year, while they plan out Phase 4. But now they have a problem because the licensing rights, Sony still owns the rights to Spider-Man technically, so having him on in the MCU, Spider-Man was kind of on loan to the, to Disney and to the MCU, but it seemed like they were planning, to have Spider-Man basically take over the role of Iron Man and Tony Stark, which is also interesting because, right, when I was growing up in, the early 2000s, right, and prior to then, for decades, Spider-Man was the face of Marvel, and Iron Man and the rest of them were kind of a secondary character. Well, now, with this generation, it's kind of reversed. Iron Man was the big character. Obviously, if you saw Endgame, you know what happened. And so it kind of seemed like they were planning for Spider-Man to become the main figurehead again. But now with, now with the deal between Disney and Marvel, being at an impasse right now, we don't know what Spidey's future is. Which may be a good time, actually, for them to put the MCU on pause as a whole for a while, and I'll tell you why. A little bit of background. I grew up a big comic fan. I did a whole podcast on this when Stan Lee passed away. Actually, so early this year, I did this podcast. But my dad would take me to the local comic store every Saturday and pick out a few comics. So I started collecting comics. So being an actual comic book fan and reading the Marvel books, it means a lot to me. The Marvel Universe. And, growing up, seeing your heroes on screen was a big deal, right? And the Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire, that was the first kind of legit superhero movie that got taken seriously, right? So when the Marvel Cinematic Universe came together, and the fact that they were starting to build a collective of all these heroes being together in the same cinematic universe. It was spectacular. But I have to say, around year 5, once they started putting out, a new superhero movie every single year, it kind of lost its appeal to me personally. So, I don't know. I'm kind of glad they're at an impasse. Hopefully they'll take this as an opportunity to, maybe, put the MCU on pause and really assess things over until they can get Spider-Man back in the MCU, which I predict is what's going to happen eventually. But, anyway, that's kind of the big Marvel and Disney news. And one more thing I wanted to cover, and I broke this news kind of on, Saturday's episode with Apex Gamma when I interviewed him. Breaking Bad is coming out with a movie that's going to be aired on Netflix. El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, is going to be all about Jesse Pinkman. And, what happens to him after Breaking Bad, which, let's be honest, that was what we were all hoping Better Call Saul actually was, right? When Vince Gilligan announced that he was going to come out with, another series, we were hoping it was going to be a sequel series, Jesse. Not a prequel series with, Saul. Although Better Call Saul isn't bad, but I think, everyone's happy that there's going to be a Jesse Pinkman movie coming out. So I'm excited for that. I think we all are. So I'll be talking more about that as, once it comes out in October. So Breaking Bad fans are happy, and I think we all are. So, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for this episode. Just kind of a quick movie, noobs type of episode, a little bit of nerd culture. This was a good podcast to test out the new mic and see how it's working out, and hopefully the audio sounds good to you guys. Sounds like it's coming in pretty good to me. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and I'll be getting a mic adapter for the iPad tomorrow, so I'll be recording the standard audio podcast on my iPad with this new mic, and then I'll also be trying this new mic out for the live stream setup on Saturday. So very excited to have this new piece of equipment. So anyway, folks, from all of us here at NGC Studios, have a good day whenever you're listening in the past, present, future hour. God bless and God save this great nation. I'll see you guys tomorrow afternoon for TWR Thursday. We'll be covering, some politics. Until then, God bless and thanks for watching, guys, or listening rather. So, God, freedom, legacy in that order.